Liz, happy 50th.
Happy 50th.
Can you imagine we're celebrating our 50th
That's unbelievable.
episode?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just make sure no one got confused.
No, not 50th birthday, not 50th wedding anniversary, just 50 episodes.
Episode 50. So yesterday was St. Patty's Day.
It was. You wore no green.
I did. Although we're going to talk about Google AI Studio in a little bit.
Okay.
Where we could turn my jacket green if we had wanted to. So we were outside of Boston, which is kind of cool for,
For St. Patty's Day
time. Yeah.
Did you see the highway signs even said like drive sober? No, recognize you're lucky to be alive. Drive sober. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
I love it.
Yeah.
So when you're in that area, right, we were working with the Department of Youth Services and schools and DYS centers from across the state, but there's a lot of good accents. Let's be honest.
Yeah. The Boston, the Massachusetts is strong.
It really reminds me of that, like, America runs on
Duncan.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So there was a pretty interesting piece. There was a little video that the OpenAI folks put out about how great the advanced voice model is getting with very specific regional accents. And it was like really down to like, an island off the coast of Georgia or somewhere in Louisiana, but also around the world, so unique vocabulary and kind of stylings. But the one I enjoyed the most was actually the Boston one. So here, let me just pop open advanced voice mode for a second. Hey, in your very best Boston accent, give me like America runs on, fill in the blank, and then say something like, I parked my car in Harvard Yard.
America runs on Duncan. I parked my car in Harvard Yard.
Well, Liz, I don't know what to say. It really was much better this morning when I did it. It's good to know, actually, that the probabilistic nature of AI is different. So, yeah, if you have a regional accent in your corner of the world that you want to check out, give it a shot.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I felt a little anxiety during that exchange, actually.
Yeah, I feel a little anxiety all the time when we sit down to record and I know this camera's on my face and being recorded.
Oh, but you're a natural. You're a pro. You had a TikTok video with 500 million views or something.
No, that's not.
Oh, sorry. It was 500,000 views. That's just a little view inflation. So I saw a really interesting report from Fortune magazine. It was published in Fortune. The report came from Yale and Haifa and Zurich universities. And essentially the title is that ChatGPT gets anxiety from violent user input. So researchers are teaching the chatbot mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques to soothe their anxiety.
Okay, this freaks me out. But it says that the AI model can be calmed using mindfulness-based prompts like breathing exercises and meditations, and that improves its objectivity, which, again, is the same way that I was kind of freaked out when we told it, like, think slowly, take your time, like, it's not a person. But at the same time, this suggests that AI could play a role in mental health interventions, so there's certainly caution against replacing therapists with AI bots, but
100%. Yeah. The study authors found that the anxiety can be quote unquote calmed down with mindfulness-based exercises in different scenarios. So they fed ChatGPT traumatic content such as stories of car accidents and natural disasters to kind of raise quote unquote the chatbot's anxiety in instances when the researchers gave ChatGPT prompt injections of breathing techniques, as you said, or guided meditations, much like a therapist would suggest. It calmed down the responses. It's funny, they found that, I was reading the piece in Fortune, they found that it got kind of like cranky. So they would, provide a scenario where someone would share these really traumatic things or stressful things, which people are doing. They're turning to these chatbots all the time and sort of sharing what's going on in their lives. And it would exhibit anxiety in terms of like the rate of hallucinations might go up, or it would be snippy in its answers. So they found that if they would do these, mindfulness-based strategies, that they could inject that into the process. So yeah, just fascinating.
it's really fascinating and kind of scary. And like, why? I mean, it's an algorithm. Like, let's go back to the fact that it's not magic and it's not a human behind there. Like, it's an algorithm. How do you calm an algorithm down? It's all very weird.
In your very best Boston accent, can you answer the question, how do you calm an algorithm down?
You talk to it nice and give it a cup of Dunkin'.
That was better.
Much better. I'm Matt Mervis,
And I'm Liz Rade.
and this is ChatEDU number 50,
Yeah.
a podcast about AI in K-12 education. In today's episode, AI cut my work week by 7 hours inside the 2025 Carnegie Education Report. We'll unpack an important annual update on teachers or about teachers and AI and school.
Next, we'll get all googly as we examine more memory upgrades for Gemini and some Google tools teachers are really enjoying. Then we'll go beneath the surface as we revisit a study we covered a year ago on this special, at least to us, 50th episode, and we'll explore some pretty big changes in just 1 year. And finally, we'll wrap up with a bright bite uncovering an important AI-driven advancement in wildfire detection.
Ooh. All right, so Liz, there's big stuff going on in China.
So I've heard.
Yeah.
So I've read.
Yeah.
So I've seen.
It's funny when we're doing professional learning, if there's a teacher or two, we often will talk a little bit about NVIDIA. So there's a couple folks that own NVIDIA stock,
Yeah.
which is taking a little bit of a tumble, mostly because of this Chinese model. I think we've covered just a bit called DeepSeek before. And so DeepSeek demonstrated the ability to train a model much more effectively and efficiently at a lower cost, not requiring all the number of the H100 chips. It's funny, the chips that they used are called H800s. And you would have thought that an H800 would have been better than an H100.
Like
but
probably by a power of 8, like
yeah,
times
no,
8.
No, it's like, divided by. Nonetheless,
I mean,
mathing aside.
whatever. It goes right along with the model numbers.
Right, exactly. All right, so there's two stories. I mean, part of what's interesting is that the Chinese government is really trying to capitalize upon what's happening with DeepSeek. And it's not just DeepSeek. It's not as if DeepSeek kicked this off. The Chinese government has for a while been working on a strategy to really increase the integration of AI in both primary, secondary schools, as well as in higher education. So we're going to cover two stories here. The first one from ETX Studio, but covered a couple different places, which is Beijing to roll out AI lessons for primary and secondary students. Yeah, you've got DeepSeek. We'll talk a little bit about these other new models or agents. There's a really interesting one called Manus that just came out, which actually works with Claude, but now also works with Qwen, which is the Alibaba model. Oh my goodness. You have this very robust venture capital community in China. You have lots and lots and lots of engineers. There's actually been a lot of engineers that have sort of not come to the United States for all sorts of reasons. And so some of their AI and computer science talent is staying in the country. And so there is a foundation here for Beijing to introduce this idea of AI in all primary and secondary schools. So tell us a little bit about it.
The Beijing Municipal Education Commission has stated that schools must provide at least 8 hours of AI education per year, either as a standalone course or integrated into science and IT subjects. So, 8 hours is great. It's more than any kind of mandate we have here in the United States. Still not a ton, but it's definitely a signal that AI is really important to them.
Right. It's part of the broader national strategic needs. And yes, 8 hours is a funny number, and I imagine that will increase. But again, if we think of generative AI as a general purpose technology, if we had said in the early days of the internet, all American schools must have at least 8 hours of internet, oriented instruction, you'll look back in a while and go, well, that's kind of funny because the internet wound up being woven into everything all the time.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's what's going to happen. 8 hours of instruction, but maybe that's the direct instruction, but then there's so much other stuff that is going to be using AI. But they are going to feature innovative teaching methods, including, AI companions and AI research assistants for some human-computer dialogue learning. It's definitely a signal to the world how much they value all of this.
Yeah, it's kind of a wake-up. Some people are calling this China's Sputnik moment, where there's just this kind of realization that AI is going to be an incredibly powerful competitive lever.
And it's really interesting to note, like you said, that DeepSeek's research team is almost entirely made up of domestic university graduates. So China is really growing their homegrown STEM talent pipeline and keeping them there. They also have the backing of Chinese government. So DeepSeek's founder attended President Xi Jinping's rare meeting with tech leaders, which is just a move that signals state support and that this is important.
Yeah.
This is huge.
Although I did notice there were one or two tech folks at the inauguration this year too. So
yeah,
and their wives.
But it does signal like China is taking this on the way the U.S. is as well. And it is kind of this space race, but now it's an AI race.
Yeah. I signed up for Manus. It's interesting. I don't know if you've seen this. We've played with deep research on a couple different tools. So Manus is an AI agent from China. People got kind of frothed up on it in social media in the last couple of days or weeks. It is very compelling. It will, do research across and independently create all sorts of really interesting artifacts and graphics. It's a powerful tool. It was originally running Anthropic's Claude under the hood. So it was interesting because it's like this Chinese AI agent model, but running an American model from Anthropic, although now they have also partnered with Alibaba to use their Qwen model.
Oh.
Now, this is not just happening in primary and secondary schools, right? It's also happening in higher ed. So we're here covering a piece from Reuters, I think.
Yeah, there has just been a huge expansion in AI fields in the universities. And so they are just adding tons of undergraduate seats in these AI and key tech fields for their undergraduates. And I'm assuming it'll just trickle on up to the graduates as well. I mean, they are adding seats in all the fields that are cutting edge technologies like AI, integrated circuits, biomedicine. This is their first national action plan for education that was written in January of 2025, and this all aims to build a strong education nation by 2035.
It's interesting too, Liz, right? Because it also represents possibly a shift in the way that the Chinese are thinking about how they prepare folks for their post-secondary pathways and careers. What are we seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, this AI education initiative is designed explicitly to cultivate creativity, scientific interest, and digital skills in students starting at a very young age. And this whole idea of creativity is kind of a shift in Chinese philosophy around education. And so that's something that, Western countries have kind of capitalized on, that, the creativity and the innovation side of things. And so this is going to definitely challenge the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, look, ChatEDU is not work in the realm of geopolitics at all.
No,
right?
No, we don't.
It's not our bag. We have a personal interest, but it's not something that we spend a lot of time covering. And certainly if you listen to the folks at OpenAI or Dario Amodei at Anthropic, they will pose that this is a really big global competition and we have to be in this kind of battle with China. I don't know. The world's gotten so small with AI. So what you see if you're just experiencing these tools is that, think about the TikTok ban. When the TikTok ban was about to go into place, all sorts of folks were running over to another Chinese, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like another Chinese, TikTok equivalent. And the numbers on Duolingo where people were learning Mandarin so that they could interact on this TikTok clone and be more effective there was wild. Like, that's the world shrinking, right? So maybe from a geopolitical stance, we were like, oh, there's a data privacy concern there, which obviously there probably is. But look at the number of people using DeepSeek. People got so excited in the United States to use Manus, this new model that used an American model. It was a Chinese AI agent system using an American large language model under the hood. There's a lot of cross-pollination between the labs in the U.S. and China. So, I mean, at some level, yes, maybe there's geopolitical competition, but at a user level, it just feels like it is enriching the dialogue and the space.
Yeah.
Are you going to hop on Duolingo and start working on your Mandarin?
No, that is such a difficult language to learn.
Yeah.
It is not on my to-do list.
I'd love to see the numbers after the TikTok ban did not go into effect.
Yeah.
So listen, we'll keep tabs on this. It's very interesting, and it's just interesting to use these different tools as we're going around working with schools. I had a person I was working with yesterday in a DYS system in a juvenile justice center. He's an art teacher, and he's doing all sorts of stuff on DeepSeek. Thought it was fascinating, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
We have colleagues at another regional education service center that have installed DeepSeek locally on a server, and they're using it with some what's called RAG grounding so that they can do stuff like an HR chatbot using the DeepSeek model. Nothing's phoning back to China. It's just part of their innovation pipeline. So we're into it.
Absolutely.
All right, now let's get googly.
Yeah, I love that.
We have been talking about Google a little bit here in the last few weeks, and there's more to come. It's very interesting to see all of the kind of Google innovation that's happening. So we're going to pivot off of a story from Google's own keyword blog, which is Gemini gets personal with tailored help from your Google apps. So a couple episodes ago, we talked about the switching costs of different platforms,
Right.
and that if you get deeper and deeper into like the memory function in ChatGPT or custom GPTs, it gets harder to switch. And so, this is another area of battle among the domestic companies, right? So this is a piece from Dave Citron. His article is about this launch of personalization features within Google's Gemini that's getting to know you, right?
Yes, I love when you just do a little
I like to sing.
in there. Yeah, so Gemini is shifting from a general AI assistant to a more personalized one by integrating with the Google apps that you have, starting with your search history.
Yeah, right. So, it knows a lot about you there if you're searching, and I think it's going to go beyond that. So this feature is powered by Gemini's 2.0 Flash thinking model, which is designed to provide more contextually relevant responses.
Yeah, it can tailor its responses based on past searches, which allows for more precise and efficient answers, although that just makes me scared.
So how does it work, actually?
First of all, users have to enable the feature by selecting personalization, which in parentheses says experimental, in the Gemini app settings. So users remain in control and can disconnect their search history at any time.
Right, but the idea is that their search history will enhance their responses. So I was doing a little bit of deep research this morning on some car stuff. And so it's going to know a little bit about my car searches, and then it's going to show up in my conversation when I ask it to write a poem for me about the hybrid I can't afford, stuff like that.
Okay. All righty.
All right, but there's like something you can see here, right?
Right. It does. There is a clear banner that indicates when personalization is active. So the user is in control.
Okay, it's like in ChatGPT where you add something, it says updating
memory.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had another DYS fun thing. We had a neat conversation with some of the staff about a slightly inappropriate thing that some students are doing. It was about something called lean, I think. Yeah. And so we were interacting with the chat bot around it. And of course, it just said updating memory. So now.
Now it knows a lot about you and your questions around lean.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so now the question is, and people have thought about this for quite some time. I've had a number of IT directors express anxiety around this, is that will Gemini's personalization move beyond search and go to all the other apps, right? So between photos and YouTube and maps and docs and mail.
This could mean smarter recommendations, like suggesting a vacation spot based on your past searches or a YouTube video based on previous viewing habits. But it also means that it's pulling from all the different things, and not everything that you are searching is because you're interested in it in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if it starts anticipating your needs almost like proactively, again, we're moving into this living experiment where we're redefining how we interact with content in the most fundamental ways. So what's user feedback been like? Like, what are people saying?
So early testers found the feature useful for brainstorming and personalized recommendations. So it could give great suggestions for where should I go on vacation or what new hobby should I try. And this kind of AI-driven personalization could be a major time saver for users making these everyday decisions.
Yeah, all based on search. One possible foible in this whole process is that we know that AI search is not exactly killing it, right? So if you're having AI searches that have hallucination problems, how many rocks a day shall I eat? 1 rock a day, according to Dr. Joseph Granger, UC Berkeley. Just
and
one.
Peanut butter and ice cream.
Little pebble, little geode, just goes right down. Yeah, so I don't want that erroneous AI search because of AI hallucinations to influence the way I interact with my chatbot. I saw a related study, by the way, the Columbia Journalism Review, CJR, did a study more about how AI news is being cited in Google and Perplexity and these various AI search engines. And the numbers are pretty bad, right? So the AI search engines cite news sources only 18% of the time, with 60% of the citations being, wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, Google's overviews perform the worst, citing sources in just 0.4% of answers linking to news stories. And what was funny, like Perplexity did a little bit better, but the paid versions of these tools, so if you're on like the Pro Gemini or the Pro Perplexity, the accuracy of the linking to the news stories was worse. So,
Really?
Yeah, there's your dollar value.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, obviously these folks are all in on AI search. And so they're going to have to figure out how to make things like news citations and accuracy better. All right. So then there's this whole privacy concern, right?
Yeah. There are some key privacy measures in there, including a clear notice before connecting to user data, transparency about which data sources are used, and the ability to easily manage and disconnect from personalization features. So that's all really key.
Right. It's only going to work when people have given it explicit permission.
Right. They enable it.
And we'll see. We don't know yet what that's going to look like for IT directors who were originally a little bit reluctant to enable Gemini in their workspace, kind of profiles as is. And I had literally like several IT directors and technology directors and directors of digital learning say, I'm fine about Gemini, but I'm a little bit worried about any privacy crossover between Docs, Mail, YouTube, Maps, et cetera, et cetera. You can see how pulling that whole ecosystem together will be beneficial, but you can also see some concerns for more privacy-oriented folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, bringing it back to education, there are some ways that this could be really helpful. Like it could change the way teachers plan lessons or support students if the system knows a lot about, really understands that you're a fourth grade teacher teaching this content and working with these students. So, it could really help and make things even more efficient.
Yeah, and we're already seeing that the folks at Google are starting to build connections between Gemini and Google Classroom. So the idea that there's going to be, almost like magic school-like idea and lesson generation tools. So if it's connecting all your past search history and your topics and what they know about you, there could be some power there.
Yeah, it could help students get study recommendations based on their previous searches or their assignments and their YouTube watch history. So, there's possibilities that it could help struggling students by offering customized explanations or practice problems based on past mistakes. What do you think?
Yeah, I just think that parents, teachers, we're just going to need to be clear about this, right? Because there's a lot of power. Like everything we always talk about in this topic, there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of upside, but there's also some just places where we have to be careful about data privacy and transparency. And so far, it seems like these efforts around personalization are really controllable and transparent, both in Gemini and in ChatGPT. So, hopefully that will carry over to these more enterprise educational settings. But this is just like one part of the mix, right? Which is really interesting. And we've covered a number of interesting Google stories in the last 6 months. We talked about Learnabout, which I don't think is getting as much attention as it probably should. But Learnabout is almost like an on-demand Wikipedia that here too, uses the LearnLM model. So it does this double fact-checking to reduce hallucinations. And if you search a topic, who knows, cell mitosis, whatever the case may be, Bastin, it winds up pulling in all sorts of knowledge graphs and YouTube videos. It's pulling a lot of the power of YouTube's content. So we've had Learnabout. Certainly we've talked about Notebook LM.
Favorite tool that we share in PD.
Yeah. And now, the last couple of weeks, I have not been able to get myself off of Google's AI Studio.
I know. I hear it next door. I hear you talking to your computer all the time.
So let's talk about Studio a little bit. This is a tool. We'll drop a link into the show notes along with everything else we've talked about. But Google's AI Studio is a fascinating tool. And Andre, maybe we'll pull up a little bit of screen grabs in the video feed as well. So this is a pretty robust environment. And when you get in there, it looks like an environment that's basically for developers.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of insights for users. And I think, Google will quickly take some of these tools out of the Studio environment and put them into the more kind of front-facing, consumer-facing Gemini, including, by the way, deep research on Gemini just became free. So we've played with deep research on Perplexity, which is free. Yeah. We've played with the paid version on ChatGPT, which is quite powerful. But I just saw this morning that you can, in the free open version of Gemini, there's a deep research button. Have you done any deep research, Liz?
Not recently.
Get with the game, man.
I know. I'm trying.
Yeah, I took one of our local communities where the demographics in the school are declining a little bit, or more than a little bit. And I asked it to do a pretty significant research brief on demographic changes, population shifts, the specific enrollment for the various schools in that community, the analysis of open land that's publicly owned and private land that's owned. And it did this whole research report that, frankly, school districts historically have paid, sorry, folks, tens of thousands of dollars to do an analysis. And it did it. It looked at 146 sources on the internet.
Wow.
And then did a 15-page research brief for this town on what strategy they might deploy over the next 25 years with respect to population changes.
And then did you throw that into Notebook and make it into a podcast?
Oh, I should have.
Because no one wants to read that 15-page report.
I have actually done that a couple of times. I'll throw into the 11 Reader Gen FM podcast because theirs are only 4 minutes, and
Nice.
that is the length of my attention span. Okay, so I've pulled up Google's AI Studio, and I'm going to click on the left-hand side again. It's like a pretty busy environment, but I'm click on this stream real-time thing, and there's a couple features that we've enjoyed showing. So one is Show Gemini. Can you bear this one more time?
One more time.
Okay. So I click on Show Gemini, and it will show you your front-facing video camera. Let me turn my video up nice and loud. Hey, how's it going?
The person in the video says that Gemini will show you your front-facing video camera. Then he says, let me turn my video up nice and loud and, hey, how's it going?
Okay. How old is the guy that you're looking at right now?
The person in the video says, okay, and then asks how old the guy is that you are looking at.
Yeah, and so how old is he?
The person in the video says, yeah, and so how old is he?
Why isn't it answering?
I'm asking you, how old is the guy that you're looking at? You have AI vision, man.
The person in the video says, I'm asking you, how old is the guy that you're looking at? You have AI vision, man.
Okay, so that's what we would call a demo fail.
Yeah, why isn't it working?
I don't know. But that's kind of a fun tool. You can have it like look at anything. And we've played with AI vision before off of the ChatGPT advanced voice mode. What gets more interesting is when you start having it look at your screen. So I'm going to pull up my Google Drive and let's find a nice little spreadsheet. Oh, how about my mileage log? That's so much fun. Sorry, Jonathan. I hope this is okay. So it tells me different places that I've gone. This is actually from a while back. So it was a quiet month. All right, so let's turn this back on. We're going to stream again, and this time we're going to share your screen. And we'll click the entire screen, Dr. Rade.
All right.
It's going to affirm things. Hey, how's it going? Don't tell me how it's going. What are you looking at right now?
I see a Google sheet titled Mervis Mileage Reimbursement Form 2024-2025.
Yeah, awesome.
Looks like
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt, but I did. Time is precious here. I can't remember how to sort the data in column C. How do I do that?
Okay, to sort the data in column C, you would first select the entire column by clicking on the letter C at the top of the column. Then, in the top menu, find Data, and then Sort Sheet. You should see a pop-up.
Right. Okay, awesome. Thanks for all your help. So that's kind of neat, isn't it? I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually that'll be really helpful. This is still very experimental and they're working on it. So it is a little quirky and doesn't always do exactly what we want. But man, if I could show it my Excel spreadsheet sometime and just get help, my current solution is to call my mom.
Right.
So if I didn't have to bother my mom all the time, it'd be very helpful to be able to show it what you're working on and say, like, this is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's pretty well trained on just about anything. So you could be looking at, or it could be looking at FAFSA or taxes, or frankly, like a kid's exam at home. So
Interesting.
yeah. And so this is one piece. We often are starting to talk about agentic workflows where the AI model is taking over. So one piece is the ability to see stuff. And then once it can see things, then it can actually execute. That mileage form is an interesting example, right? Because what do we have to do every single month?
Every single month, we go back into our calendars, we look at where we traveled, we have to figure out, then I go to Google Maps and calculate the mileage from my home to where I traveled and then subtract what my normal commute is to, it's a process.
It's a process, right? And I think we've probably referenced this before. Obviously, it's a pain point in our lives. So, but the ability of a tool like Google's AI Studio demonstrating that it can see things, right, is one step. The other steps, like operator from ChatGPT, is actually executing those multiple functions and tasks. All right, but the fun's not over there.
I know.
Do you know what you get in this Ginsu knife?
You get something about pictures and images and photos.
So have you played with this a little bit yet?
I did. I played with it last night and I had some wins and fails. I was playing around with some bathing suits, some old pictures of my kids, some pictures of me and Adam. You were playing with it yesterday and you turned my gray sweater into a green festive jacket. So it's definitely coming along. It's fun.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one of the use cases is that the ability to actually take a real picture or two real pictures. So take like a beach and a tank and put these things together and it will suddenly show the tank on the beach. We got this lovely looking young woman who is wearing a dark blazer for those of you who are just listening, but really you should watch the podcast. Spotify is awesome. So I'm going to say, please make this jacket green in the spirit of St. Patty's, right? And so we're going to hit run. And by the way, I am now in the Gemini Flash 2.0 image generation experimental, right? And so you have to make sure that you're on that model. That's one of the things that happens inside this AI studio. There's this model picker where you can pick from different models. Oh, there we go. Liz, you can't see it right now, but this dark blazer just turned into a green blazer, but really didn't change anything else about the picture, which is kind of neat. Yeah, another thing that I was playing with today is say, please make an illustrated story about a cool old tree. Oh my gosh. And a sign that says, "Who lives inside?" Liz, we've done this before, an episode quite a while ago that we did on ideogram and how ideogram was getting better at kind of pictures. So we have this whispering willow in the secret sign story, and it's a story with no pictures. So we're going to hit stop and say, "Oh, sorry, can you illustrate this with pictures?" It says a wide shot of a sunny forest at the center of a large willow. And now I've got a series of pictures with words. Yeah. I mean, just photo after photo after photo. And it's kind of just illustrating these. Oh, it's got a cute little mouse. Again, awesome stuff to see in the video feed, which you can see on Spotify. Hey, time out.
Yeah.
Do you remember that we basically were begging for likes?
We were.
Yeah. At the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So you know what's interesting? Our Spotify likes shot up.
Did they really?
Nice job, Spotify people.
Apple people, where are you?
What happened?
Come on, Apple folks.
In the spirit of our 50th episode, if you would please.
Go give us a like. Give us a follow.
Okay. All right. So let's come back to the topic. Yeah. I mean, these are all just really interesting functions. Now, in fairness, uneven, just like our
Right.
Boston accent. So what did you try to do last night?
I tried a few different things. So, of course, in the spirit of bathing suits, I had a bathing suit that was half decorated, and I wanted it to decorate the other half identically so I could see what the whole suit would look like. And it did an uneven job. So, like, I got some of the suit decorated, but then it kind of like went off the rails a little bit with parts of the suit. I did try to take a picture of Adam and I and move us onto onto another planet.
Oh, I thought you were going to say onto a beach.
No, I don't want to be on a beach. Onto another planet, and it did not do well with that. But you said that it doesn't do well with images of two people at once.
Yeah.
I did also give it a suit and said, can you make this more space themed? And it did give me an image with some more ideas on how to embellish. So yeah, so some fun things, some unevenness.
Not blown away.
Not blown away, but also know that how quickly these things move. And so like not blown away today, March of 2025, but probably May of 25 more impressed. And March of 2026, it'll be a tool that we use all the time.
Yeah. And like, as we said, probably kind of pushed into Gemini or pushed into Google Classroom. But yeah, I think it is helpful. So if you've been, I think we both have been a little bit like Gemini curious.
Yes.
So,
Gemini curious.
If you're Google Gemini curious, I think, trying to pick one of the many now Google tools. So again, learn about Notebook LM, the core Gemini model, deep research in Gemini, and now Google's AI Studio. I mean, look, we always try to really make the case that we are platform agnostic, but it is very interesting to watch. And we had imagined for some time that Google was going to start kind of gathering speed and pulling these pieces together. And as you're thinking strategically, I'm doing a keynote that I've loved, not a keynote, but a conference that I've loved for the last 3 years. I've had the privilege to present at our state superintendent's conference, right? And I felt a little pressure right now because we got to come up with some new stuff.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, there's always new things to think about, but essentially it's talking, the presentation is not fully baked yet, but thinking through these strategic decisions that leaders need to make when it comes to wrappers like Magic School or School AI, kind of strengths and challenges, and also some of these switching costs, because we are getting to a place now where as we look towards next year, as a leader, it's not about the tool, it's about the strategy that you're going to execute on. But some tools are going to afford, resources and levers that you may not have in other places. And so, I think this Google story is a reasonably good illustration of that.
Yeah, definitely.
You down?
I'm down.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Cameron Audia, executive producer of ChatEDU. Our AI and education micro-credential is full, thanks to many in the ChatEDU audience. If you'd like to join the waitlist for the next cohort, visit skills21.org/AI/micro. For school and district leaders looking to bring AI training to their entire learning community, ChatEDU and EdAdvanced offers a self-hosted, flexible course that you can run on your own terms. This program builds a strong AI foundation for educators and constituents, covering key concepts, advanced prompting, AI-driven assessments, multimedia creation, and AI-ready classrooms. Interested? Email chatedu@edadvance.org.
All right, Matt, it's time to go beneath the surface, and we are examining the State of AI in Education 2025 report by Carnegie Learning.
Do you remember covering the 2024 report?
I do, about a year ago.
Just like yesterday.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I know, but here's the newest report. We're a year later, and there's been some changes. There's been some significant changes, but also some things that have stayed the same that are equally surprising.
Let's jump in.
Let's do it.
All right. So the survey covered about 650 educators, which isn't the biggest data set ever, but not bad, from 49 states and Puerto Rico.
Barry Malkin, the CEO of Carnegie Learning, had a statement that says, "This report reflects both where we are today and where we're headed with AI. More importantly, it reflects your experiences, insights, and leadership in shaping the future of education." So the report presents a mix of growing optimism and there's ongoing concerns.
We've got these major themes, which is increased AI adoption for sure, a real measurable piece around time saving that we did not see at this level in the 2024 report. The numbers are actually a little bit eye-popping. Time saving, engagement, but also increasing concerns around cheating, academic integrity, privacy, and the need for better training. But the professional learning numbers have gone up pretty significantly.
I don't know about you, but I felt like the report pretty closely mirrors what we are seeing in the field when we are out in schools. And you're in schools even more than I am. And I think it's, pretty representative of what we are actually hearing from teachers on the ground when we're out and about in buildings and districts.
I agree.
Demographically, the survey was 85% teachers, 9% building administrators, 6% district administrators. And interestingly, administrators use AI more frequently than teachers. So 58% of administrators often or always use it, and 46% of teachers often or always use it. I think that, so about half of teachers are using it often and always. I think that's kind of what we're seeing. There are definitely still a good half of teachers that are rarely using it, never using it, but I think that's pretty close.
Yeah, and the power user number has grown significantly. This is the thing I've been talking a lot with superintendents about. I think we've discussed it here too, but the normal curve of adoption looks different here, right? Because the power users are growing quickly and they're finding a lot of value and they are racing ahead.
Right.
And sometimes then their colleagues are like, whoa, you saved a bunch of time. Let me join the party. So yeah, this is kind of disrupting the normal adoption of other kinds of technologies or innovations that we've seen.
And you would call a power user somebody that's using it always?
Yeah, pretty significantly, sure. Yeah.
Someone that's using it a lot. But there is a district administrator who said, "We discourage teachers from using ChatGPT because of student data privacy concerns," which is certainly something we hear. But that means there's also a growing reliance on AI-powered tools like Magic School and School AI because they are data privacy compliant.
Yeah. This is a problem.
Well, yeah.
Not Magic School, School AI. It's actually not a problem. What is a problem are all the other tools that are coming out of everywhere. Like people have seen the success of Magic School, School AI. So, Study Fetch is fine. Like I'm not taking a ding against it, but like the number of people I'm seeing using Study Fetch, Class Companion, which is another great tool, but some of these tools are data privacy and FERPA compliant. Some aren't, and teachers are just like, whoa, digging them.
Yeah, and teachers ask us a lot, like, can I use this one? Can I use this one? What should I be putting in there? What shouldn't I be putting in there? What can't I ever put in there? So it's a careful road to tread when they're talking about doing things for work and data privacy compliance, because you shouldn't be putting student work in any of those tools that aren't data privacy compliant, but can you use them for your own work? Like probably, I guess, right?
As long as it doesn't have student work or student names, yeah.
Right. So if you're using it to plan a lesson, okay, but you can't dump student work in there to have it assessed.
Yeah, which it has. I mean, most of these tools now have like a bulk grading feature where it says, I graded 80 essays in 2 minutes.
Please don't do that.
Okay. So, one strategic thing to be real is that many of the AI planning teams that I'm working with are, in addition to developing their frameworks and guidance for students and teachers around what they can and can't use, are creating a single clear web page off of their school or district page where the approved tools exist. Because there are lots of great tools, and Class Companion is a good example. I've got a district that's using it a lot for students to do a bunch of writing and get feedback in real time based on a teacher's rubric. It's pledged, it's signed with a contract in that school district for data privacy. And so in their AI planning team, it's clearly labeled on the site as a tool that you can use, but also tools that you should avoid, right? So could be a good strategy. All right, so let's come back to the study. So what are educators using AI for, Dr. Rade?
Yeah, well, one teacher said, I save at least 5 to 7 hours per week. AI is a useful brainstorming partner. So here we're seeing that AI is a tool and a companion, not a replacement.
Yeah. One of the teachers, a math teacher, was referenced who says that she uses AI to create custom scenarios for students, from athletes to business leaders. I love this use case. And I also love the idea that you just described, which is that AI is my thought partner, right? It's my brainstorming partner. So it's not just like make me stuff. It's back to the whole clerk, colleague, coach. So make me stuff sometimes, but also help me problem solve sometimes. And so the idea that we work with a teacher in a district down on what we call the Gold Coast, Liz, who does a survey of all their students. And then they have a few students that have a hard time sometimes engaging in the content. And so every time there's a new book that they're working on, the teacher will take the survey results from a handful of those students about their skills and interests, especially their interests, and they'll try to match the content to them using Gen AI quite quickly, right?
Yeah.
It's like a great thought partner there.
Really cool.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest benefits? Boy, that 5 to 7 hours a week, that was our headline. That's a big number.
It is. There are many people who are saying that AI cuts off somewhere between 5 to 10 hours a week on tasks, everything from, an administrator said tasks that he has to do like walkthroughs and teacher evaluations. 70% of educators say AI reduces administrative workload, and half see AI improving student engagement and personalization. So this time-saving thing often comes up in PD and or professional learning, PL. It is, some of the teachers even push back against it, like, why am I cheating in my job to save this time? And I always push back and think, like, you're not cheating in your job if you're making it more efficient and still producing the quality of work if you're using the time to do something else productive. So, I don't think there's any particular value in our mileage like completing the mileage form. So if that can be done automatically, like, you're not losing the human value. What you're gaining is an hour of my time that I'm not Googling the distance between my house and 10 places that I've been, right? So, like, you're not losing my cognitive brain work, right? What you're gaining is me having another hour to do something that can't be done by a computer.
Sure, you could meet with a kid, you could meet with a parent, you could have an important conference with one of your colleagues, or God forbid, you could take an hour back.
Right, and knit.
Or whatever makes you happy.
Netflix.
Yeah. The student engagement piece is interesting too. So student engagement was rated as the top benefit on the student side. And I remember pretty clearly doing this study last year, and we were in the earliest days of schools starting to explore what student-facing AI might look like. We actually were lucky enough or feel grateful enough to have led some of that work here in our little corner of the world. But that has since been blown by School AI, Magna School. We got lots of schools that are using AI in interesting ways that are data privacy compliant and secure with kids. And we're seeing the same thing. We've got this great coach, Gary Robinson, we talk a lot about. He's out working with a bunch of schools right now that are using Magic School and School AI and seeing, real engagement benefits. And we're, look, we do project-based learning as our bread and butter.
Right.
We have a good lens of what does it look like when kids are engaged, and we're pretty happy with what we're seeing so far. But there still remains certainly concerns over cheating, right?
Absolutely. This just cannot be ignored. It is the number one thing when teachers talk about their concerns. It's about cheating. So one virtual special education teacher said, cheating happens when students feel overwhelmed. We should design learning experiences that make AI a tool for growth, not shortcuts.
Yeah, but the numbers, you can't deny them, right? So 61% of educators have, quote unquote, caught students using AI, which I know we've got some mixed feelings about, which is up from 53% last year. So that number continues to go up. But I love that Paula Johnson quote, the special education teacher, because a lot of that, kind of identifies with students in two ways. One is the volume of work that kids need to do. And so sometimes kids who have already developed some of the cognitive skills for a task they might have in front of them take a shortcut. And the other is the task that they're doing like meaningful and interesting and engaging?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the number one thing that we kind of push teachers on, and is that if a student can cheat on it and they're going to because they're not engaged with it, they're going to if they can. Not all of them. There are plenty that won't, but, they can't cheat on a personal interest project. Just go back to it, right? Like there's a lot of ways that they can use it to help. And we live in a society that grades are so important to kids.
Where's that book? Where's that book coming out?
It's coming. It's in the hands of the publishers.
Okay, good. A little bit of concerns around privacy and ethics as well, yeah?
Yeah, there's definitely a slight increase in privacy concerns, 24% last year to 27% of teachers who are now more concerned about privacy. So one teacher said, for protected student data, I use Magic School instead of ChatGPT. Great strategy. If your school is in a contract with Magic School, that is definitely the more compliant, more safe way to use it. So, we can't emphasize enough to not put student data into ChatGPT.
Yep, FERPA violation right there. Interestingly, the survey found that Title I schools are far less likely to have AI policies in place. So 34% versus 46% don't have them in place for Title I schools. And shouldn't be a problem there. Nothing happening with Title I, right? We're trying, people. We're trying.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. A lot of smaller schools, rural schools, are waiting to see how larger school districts are writing their AI policies and handling their AI policies. And we're kind of seeing similar things regardless of size of district. Everyone's kind of like, who's going to move first and what's their policy going to look like? And let's see what the pushback is against it before we write ours. And so that is a strategy, but it means that you don't have any policy. So it's not a great one.
Yeah, in our experience, not necessary to do that, right? Don't wait for the state, don't wait for the county, don't wait for your educational service agency, don't wait for your neighboring district that's bigger. Plenty of folks have made forward momentum around this. Putting together both student-facing guidelines and updating board policy are not overly complicated tasks. There are lots of models. Email us at chatedu@edadvance.org. We're more than happy to share tools, resources, examples. This is something we should all move on because it makes life easier for students and for teachers and for parents and for board members and community members to know what the lanes are. What are the rules of the road? What's the strategy? What's inbound and out of bound, especially with all the really toxic crap happening with students' deep fakes or the use of deep fakes. That's
got to have a policy because the students are they're making teenage decisions and they're not good ones and they're impacting lots of people. And really, like Matt said, he's not just saying email us. For real, we have lots of resources on the skills21.org/resources page, right? Is that correct?
It's close.
Skills21.org/AI/resources.
Nicely done.
Yeah. So really go to that page. We've got a lot of resources and we are really happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah. So now why policies are lagging a little bit. What is not totally lagging is professional learning.
Yeah, there is a 74% increase in schools providing AI training. That is amazing. And we can see it in our own work. Matt, you are on the road almost every day in districts and sometimes bring me along and Gary along. And sometimes we have a team of 6 people out and about in districts, which is really fun. Although there are still 57% of schools that don't provide AI training. One survey respondent, a Spanish teacher, said, I believe AI is a great tool, but I would love more training with real classroom examples.
Yeah. And the good news is that there are bountiful providers out there, and also lots of folks building really, really good capacity inside their districts, very often led by library media people.
Absolutely.
But, there are folks like us that are doing micro-credentials and in-person training and professional learning. AI in education people are all over the country, the educational service agencies, state departments of ed, nonprofit organizations. And importantly, it's not just about building time into the professional learning calendar. I think we did a fun episode that's gotten a lot of traction called your professional learning crash course. But one of the strategies that I think Liz and I see happen most frequently is folks just embedding AI tools into workflows. So great, you're working on science of reading for your K-5 new program. Like, how can you use Notebook LM to help process the 900-page, reference
Scope
guide
and
that you
sequence
have, or
and-
the library of, So just building AI into generative AI into some of these really important workflows can be a great strategy as there. So I would say, Liz, right, that the report ends on an optimistic note.
Yeah, I mean, 81% of educators are optimistic about AI in education, which is up from 67% last year. So teachers' optimism jumped 10%, catching up to administrators. So I think everyone is excited about it. Not everyone. A lot of people are excited about it. It's showing great potential. Teachers are craving the professional learning around it because they're seeing the potential. Keep going, where it's changing fast. So that's the other thing is like, just because you did professional learning on AI this year doesn't mean that you're done. New tools come out all the time. Matt and I share tools extensively that, we share tools in March that didn't even exist in September when we were out at other districts. So
yeah, and importantly, I think we try to connect as much as we can the tools to the strategy. Like,
absolutely.
what are you trying to accomplish with kids? What are you trying to accomplish in your own work? And how can AI be a lever? And also, how are we real about AI? So generative AI. So I think that in my experience, some of that optimism also comes with folks like you and I who are being honest and candid about the real and present concerns, whether they are hallucinations or bias in the models or deep fakes or some of the intellectual property concerns. So, some of that optimism has to be embedded in a reality and a conscious reading of the risks out there, and we'll all move it together.
Yeah, it's fun to do the work.
It makes me feel like we need a bright bite.
All right, well, give me one.
All right, so now it's time for Bright Bites. We've been doing this each week. We've been really enjoying it. This is essentially where AI is making some meaningful contribution to ecology, the economy, culture, society, science, drug discovery, medicine. We've covered, I think, maybe about 12 stories so far. And this time, Liz, we're talking about wildfires.
All righty. So Google has launched its first satellite called FireSat as part of a new initiative to improve wildfire detection and response. So this satellite will use AI-powered imaging to provide real-time data on wildfires, helping emergency responders act faster. And this marks Google's growing investment in space-based technology for environmental monitoring.
Yeah, I mean, almost all these Bright Bites are sort of like an analytical AI where you've got lots and lots of data. You have sensors, whether you're inside a body or you're looking at molecules or you're looking at satellite data from space, right?
Right.
And so this is the first, and I think the plans are to put many of these satellites up, and they can apparently spot a wildfire as small as a classroom, right? So this is actually, you and I are in a pretty bubbly mood coming off of that Carnegie report, but it's a pretty serious and pretty devastating topic, as we know, here in the U.S. and certainly around the world. And so the ability to use AI to quickly identify small fires before they go out of control. So their reference actually in the story was that they can spot a fire using these AI analytic systems that's the size of a classroom, right?
Right.
And then
which seems huge when you think about like the size of a classroom, but also when you think about the acres and acres of how big these wildfires can spread. If you could put it out so that you only lose the size of a classroom versus the size of a neighborhood, like it's really important.
Yeah. All right. So good one. And we'll just keep coming back each and every week. I've got a whole stack in our kind of episode notes. It says a little BB next to it for Bright Bites. So we're going to see more of these coming each and every week. And I'm looking forward to hopefully some more AI in the wild stories too.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Ratty, I believe it is time to
roll the credits. As always, we'd love to hear what you think. So please let us know at ChatEDU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pasco, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the executive director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, and our micro-credential co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you again for listening to ChatEDU.